Ladies and gentlemen, we're here to interview 3rd Congressional District Congressman Greg Murphy in his office in Greenville. Greg has been in the House of Representatives now for a short period of time and had an astounding, huge margin of victory in his first election. So we want to see what has changed and what he's learned and so forth. So we'll get on with the interview, but this is a very exciting situation for us because now we get a chance to see Washington from the inside without the filter of the media. Congressman, when are you up for re-election?
I'm up for re-election this fall. Actually, seems like a lot. It seems like we just had our elections last year, and now we're back up again. So it's just the regular cycle. Since we came in on a special election in the middle of a cycle, we still continue with the regular election cycle.
What committees have you been assigned?
When I first got up to Congress in September of 19, the way committee assignments at that time, there really wasn't much of a choice. I was given committees, and I've enjoyed both of them tremendously. Been on education and labor, which really is part of what I've done. I've been on a college board of my alma mater. I've been a university adjunct professor for 25 years. So education's really been something very, very close to my heart. And then the other one is science and technology, which given my background as a physician, I've always had a great love for science, and so we've delved a lot of things into with NASA and some of the cybersecurity, cyberspace type of issues. So those have been two very good committees.
Really important ones, I would say, given there's a lot of impact that the professors seem to be having with the students, and leading to what a lot of people feel is radicalizing college students and university students to support the liberal dogma. Do you see it that way?
Well, it's very interesting because when I was on, as I mentioned, I was on board of trustees of my alma mater. I saw a progression and a transition from higher education. In my opinion, when you leave high school and you're going off to college, university, I think that the important lessons learned are that you should learn how to learn, not what to learn. And unfortunately, I think a lot on college campuses now, and this comes from college presidents down, from chancellors down, it's become political organizations. I personally feel that you should never, ever know the political affiliation of a college president. They're there to be the head of the administration. They're there to make sure that the college runs smoothly. They're not there to be political activists. And unfortunately, that's what we're seeing on a lot of college campuses these days. And I will tell you this, I somehow became a little bit of a lightning rod for conservative professors, not only at my institution, but for other institutions, who lamented the fact that it was such an environment of liberal culture that they were afraid to express any type of counterculture views, if you will, and in fear of not being able to be tenured, in fear of not being able to have committee assignments, and the same thing for students, not being able to be graded fairly. So there is, without a doubt, on college and university campuses today, a liberal bias, and one in which I think that critical learning skills have been affected. They talk about diversity, and we all applaud diversity, but diversity should be in all things, and that includes, most importantly, diversity of opinion, not just one side of a story. So I do think that colleges and universities have lost their way in a lot of regards into preaching a particular political doctrine rather than teaching how to learn.
Is there any remedy for the problem?
Well, I think the remedy, if colleges and universities do not police themselves, the only power that the federal government has is funding. And I would hate that would be an issue But it's just literally unfair. There's a statement. It was developed in 1929 at the University of Chicago. It's called the University of Chicago Statement of Freedom of Expression. And college presidents and university chancellors were asked to sign onto this, saying that their institution would be one that prizes free expression and free speech. And actually, it was brought out in the 1920s, the late 20s, to protect communists because they were allowed to have free speech. Unfortunately, we have a very small minority of institutions that have signed on to that agreement. Chapel Hill, to their credit, has signed on to that, but we have several other institutions in this state that have refused to sign on to that, and so that speaks volumes. That they have lip service that'll talk about free speech, but they really don't believe in it.
Well, you see the activism of the college students tearing down statues and monuments of all types, and all of the anti-conservative rhetoric and beating up on students that attempt to utilize their free speech rights on college campuses, and there's no other source for it except the college professors. I don't think the children learn this at home, but is there any way to reach the parents who are paying for these very expensive educations only to have their children indoctrinated in this manner? Is there any way to get to them?
Well, the problem is once you're 18, you're supposedly emancipated from your parents, and even though they can pay the bills for college, they're not even allowed to see the grades unless the child waives things. And so it's a difficult process, in trying to give these kids freedom. We've actually, in some ways, I think, imprisoned them more because we're sending them off from a home environment into an environment that essentially pushes one particular political agenda.
Have you met Nancy Pelosi since you've been in Washington?
She was the person that gave me the oath of office.
AOC?
I've just had a couple brief, very, very brief conversations with her.
There was a fellow that I know that was a corporate director of training for Ford Motor Company that lived across the street from me, and he sent me a text message, and I'm going to bring it up here so you can read it. This guy sent me this message from AOC saying that there's a screenshot of the message that he sent me saying that, it's, the governors need to keep the state's economies shut down because if we lose a few people here and a few businesses there, that's a small price to pay for in order to get rid of Donald Trump. I find that as an astonishing statement. Is that a view that's widely held in Washington?
Well, I don't know that that's an accurate tweet or whatever. I don't know that. I wouldn't. Let's just put it this way: having been now in Washington D.C. for about 9 months and dealing with Nancy Pelosi, dealing with Adam Schiff, dealing with AOC, their hatred for the President Trump and the administration, in my opinion, I wouldn't put something like that past them. They would do anything that they can to try to overturn the duly elected president of the 2016 elections. Now, President Trump is bold. He campaigned on the fact that he was going to drain the swamp. Well, now when he gets to Washington D.C., although he does it in quite an unconventional manner, he's not a typical politician. Now there's such a kickback on draining the swamp, and He's done what he said he was going to do. He's been the most transparent president that's ever been in office. Some people like that transparency, some people don't. But the fact that he's called these folks out for what he believes, and I think a great number of Americans believe, calls them out for being who they are and what they stand for, there's a great revolt against that. I wouldn't say that's the overall arching feeling in Washington, D.C., but there's a lot of swamp in Washington, D.C. that's been there for decades, and they don't like the apple cart to be overturned.
Well, there's a kind of a loosely translated statement that I've heard about folks in government that, at state, local, and national levels, well, we were here before him, and we'll be here after him. And whoever the governor or president is, that they're just passers-by, and that the permanent establishment of the bureaucracy is going to be there before them and after them, and nothing. So they're going to protect their jobs and their way of life and how they do things, and to help with the person in charge.
I would not disagree with that.
The riots that we've been seeing of late clearly are not the outgrowth of the George Floyd death any longer, and attempts to right political wrongs that the black leaders and voters in this country say that they're behind wanting to make political change. It's gone way beyond that now, it seems. And there's a lot of folks that believe that the demonstrations and the rioting and the attempts to defund the police and all these other aspects of our current life are part of an effort to eliminate Donald Trump as a presidential candidate and take him out of office with or without the election, and so forth. Is that, a lot of people think that we've already seen the beginnings of a civil war in this country. Do you see it that way?
Well, let me just first and foremost say that what happened with George Floyd, there's total uniformity that it was a horrendous act.
It was
a horrendous act.
Absolutely.
But it was done by a rogue police officer, who, is my understanding, they had attempted to remove before, but his police union, the police union, protected him from being fired.
Absolutely.
So we see what unions can do and the power that they can have to protect bad people within them, which is unfortunate. There's uniformity in that, and there was understandable outrage at that, and it brings up again the question of racism in the United States, which we're a human nation. It exists. We can't say it doesn't exist, but the way they have taken this and politicized this event, really, I don't know it's even so much against Donald Trump, but it seemingly is against Republicans, calling them racists. And they've tried to do that since, in my opinion, the beginning of the President Trump presidency, and label names because they have emotions with regard to them. I don't think any Republican is any more racist than any Democrat. It's an individual decision, has nothing to do with a political party. But what they've promoted has been anarchy. Has been total anarchy. And if you look at the cities, the place up in Seattle where they had this autonomous zone where they essentially kicked out the police. Well, there were 2 murders there. They wouldn't let the police go in and help them.
Exactly.
Chicago this past weekend, there were riots and a 7-year-old child was killed, or maybe that was in Atlanta. But regardless, it's Chicago, Atlanta. These are places run by Democratic mayors that have literally lost control of the people in their cities, and now they've had to call in the National Guards to restore order. Is that what America wants? Is that what America wants? Is anarchy? I really don't think that's the case, and I think most blacks don't feel that way. Most whites don't feel that way, but there is a very, very vocal minority that wants to topple what the governmental structure is in the United States, and we just simply cannot let them win.
The Fabian socialists brought to this country back in the turn of the 1900s, brought their view of the Marxist socialist movement that they've been attempting to introduce into American life for all these decades. And one of the elements that I'm sure you know who Terry Turchie is. Terry has written a book that says that the Weather Underground and the Black Panthers have been attempting to sow division in the United States through continuing to emphasize racism, because they felt that racism was the soft underbelly of the U.S. consciousness, and that to continue to emphasize racism was the clearest method for them to eliminate capitalism as a form of government and install socialism, which would lead to communism.
Well, it was very interesting. If you look at the Bolshevik Revolution, that was started by essentially 1,700 people or so. And it led to tens of millions, if not 100 million deaths in the Soviet Union. And it started by a very small group of people. There is, without a doubt, a group that is parading under the guise of trying to, quote, improve race relations, that is actually seeking to create more division. As I said, I don't believe Black America wants any more division than white America does. I think people wake up, they want to be able to protect their family, they want to be able to feed their family, and they want to just be able to be respected. That's what they want. They don't want anger, they don't want righteous indignation, they don't want hatred. But these other groups are sowing hatred, and that's what they're doing. And if you don't believe in what they believe, you're the enemy, whether you're white or black. So
absolutely, the politics in this country has become so polarized and so tribal that I don't know that we, as a Republican Party, that we have quite accepted what we're not vocalizing what we believe is going to be the key issue in the next election, and I don't know. You got the left and the media, arrayed against a conservative president and a conservative Senate. And this is all about political power. I don't know, what do we have to do to make clear what the divisions are that we're going to be fighting for in this coming election?
Well, I think it's, I'm going to put my doctor's hat on for a minute, and I feel sorry for Mr. Biden, because I think he is suffering from some of the ravages of dementia, and I think he's being taken advantage of by the Democratic Party. I think that given what has happened many times, that if he were to be elected president, he will be incapacitated within a year or two. And so whoever he picks as a vice president, essentially one person is getting to pick the next president of the United States. And so, in my opinion, a vote for him is one that's not voting for him, it's essentially giving Nancy Pelosi the keys to the kingdom. And that scares the living hell out of me, to be very honest.
Absolutely, it does. And Chuck Schumer. If the I don't believe that the Democrats can take back the Senate, but they're going to try real hard.
Sure.
What the future of this nation is going to be like in the coming years is going to be largely decided by what happens in this election. In years past, everybody has said this is the most consequential election of our time. Well, that was probably an overstatement in recent past years, but I don't have any doubt that that is a fair statement in regards to what the outcome of this election means to the future of the United States and the values that all of us grew up with and want to maintain. There's nobody that wants racism. I know a lot of black people, and as long as they're friends of mine, and they other people, even if I don't know them, hello, how are you? Treat them with respect. I don't expect anything more than that. But there's been talk about this friend of mine in Elizabeth City was at a gun show in Virginia Beach. He put on the Facebook that he was standing near 3 young black males. And he overheard their conversation, so he acted like he was looking at various items for sale right there nearby so that he could stand there and listen to their conversation. And what he reported was that they said that if Donald Trump gets elected, Antifa and other anarchist groups are going to take it out on the American cities, much in the way that we just saw. I don't know how you address that, how you prepare for it. You got any comments?
No, I didn't hear that myself, and there are a lot of things that are being said and rumors. All I know is I think the vast majority of individuals in the United States, of all races and all ethnicities, just want to live in peaceful existence with one another. They don't want the hatred that's being pushed by these marginal groups. And we just pray. We were a nation. Our founding fathers believed in God. I think there have been some major problems that we've lost God. We've kicked him out of the schools. We've kicked him out of everywhere, and it's led to the destruction of the nuclear family. And one of the greatest challenges in this nation now is young men growing up without fathers and not knowing how to grow up and be a man and be a leader of a family. So we have our challenges because of, in my opinion, decisions made by some of the left-wing groups. If it goes back to the Great Society programs, we created a government dependency, now a generational dependency. And they just want more of that. And so I think it's wrong. I think there is a day of reckoning coming up ahead. But again, I think most people in this country just want to live in peaceful existence.
I know that to be true. But at the same time, when you face the threat of anarchy and the burning of American cities and taking over police departments and defunding police departments like you see in New York and Minnesota and other places. It's very hard to know it's pretty hard to put all of your hopes for maintaining a civil society on the back of one election.
I agree.
How do you feel about American foreign policy? with respect to the governments such as Russia, Iran, Turkey, and Libya and so forth. What have you learned from being in Congress? The short time you've been up there.
Well, I think every country is different. So let's just take one or two. Let's look at China. China is not our friend. China is, in my opinion, our greatest threat right now. They attack our nation 12 to 15,000 times a day as far as cyber attacks. And that's not stopped up during the pandemic. China and the WHO organization, the World Health Organization, were complicit in trying to hide COVID-19, which has caused trillions of dollars of loss worldwide. Hundreds of thousands of people have died worldwide. China is not our friend, and we've seen our own dependence upon China for how much we depend upon them for medications, for goods, and all of these necessary things that we here in America need. Now, maybe there's a silver lining in the pandemic, and that we realize this, and so we're going to bring some of those American businesses as much as possible back home. But the reason they left and went to China is because of overregulation and wage controls here, and wages, high wages here in the United States. So what we need to do is we need to move those industries to either back to this country or to countries that we know are true allies, not our enemies.
It is one thing to...
We got to prepare for the next meeting at 10:15.
Okay.
It is one thing to propose, efforts to bring back American business to America, but the mere fact, the true fact of it is that there are a lot of very powerful people that benefit by the products being sold in the United States that are built with slave labor in China, and they want to keep the relationship between the U.S. and China, with China being the manufacturer of the supply chain. That they want people to want to keep it that way.
Well, just kind of in summary, if you look at our NBA stars, a lot of them with sneaker and shoe contracts. It's okay for them to make millions upon millions of dollars on the kids of the United States, but you're right. Those shoes are being made in factories in China where they have essentially slave labor, they have child forced labor, and until there's a day of reckoning where we talk about having tough conversations and hard conversations. Well, let's have those hard conversations for sure, but let's also talk about other hard conversations. And so, it's just a double-edged sword here. People don't want to talk about one side because they just want to push one agenda. Well, let's talk about the whole entire topic, and let's talk about wrongs that are being done in every particular aspect. But I thank you.
Well, China has been attempting to replace the United States as the world superpower, to replace the dollar as the world's reserve currency. They've been doing that for decades, while we have been outsourcing our jobs and all of our products, and it's going to be a mountainous task to return those businesses to the United States. Removing tax incentives and so forth, just may not be enough. But clearly, it's a huge problem, and if we don't get control of it, we're gonna be the losers in that prospect for a long time.
Right.
Thank you very much, Congressman. I wish we had more time.
Well, thank you, John. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.